we are just living in a time that is never been. But what saves me is going around taking photographs.
Normally, when I draw things in my sketchbook, I'll sort of catalog. It's still everyday life, but everyday life wasn't so intense before. It'd just be, I went to the beach. Ooh, here's the lovely beach scene. Or there were some people on the beach. We were all talking. We went out to a restaurant, but none of that was happening. So these were like the new things that were happening, and it created a new sense of normalcy.
I have found during when the pandemic started, and even for several months, I was not motivated to really do anything, and I have found in the last, recently in the last couple months, I have been able to hunker down, and I think because it's become normalized.
With COVID, everything changed, and suddenly I was on lockdown. The building that I live in allowed nobody in, nobody out, and suddenly I had a large amount of time, which is something I've always needed and never had. And so my son came and set up a painting studio for me in what had been my study. And with this painting studio and a portable easel, I began painting.
This started as a series. In 2017, Princeton University started a Revise Your Ride, so I became part of the bike walk program. And what that did, that I was no longer driving a car, I walked to campus and I started to take photographs. And because of that, I love reflections, and I started, this is Spelman Hall on the campus, and I started to take a whole series of these beginning in 2017. When the pandemic hit, I started to go around campus, which was now empty, and this exit sign was in all of these that I took, but it became so much more symbolic to me. And the fact that the exit sign reflects backwards, it just made me feel loneliness at that point.
I was in a total state of panic. Nobody knew what was going to happen. We were told to stay home. We didn't go anywhere. And I was down to one canvas. And I wasn't sure I was even going to have the time to draw anything. But every day, to sort of calm myself down, I started drawing things on any scrap of paper I could find. Usually it's like junk mail or whatever's laying on the table. And as I stopped shopping in person and started ordering stuff, I had all these cardboard boxes. And I was holding a marker in my hand, and I saw one day, and I grabbed my utility knife and cut it up and said, okay, this is the perfect surface. I'm going to take these. I've got all these Sharpies left over from this other project, and it was actually therapeutic. It was helpful that I started drawing all this stuff, because there were a lot of, drawing is normally my therapy if I'm anxious about something or I don't know how something is going to play out. Sometimes I'll work it out, usually on paper in my sketchbook, and the cardboard became my sketchbook.
And I actually started teaching classes outside in my backyard, and I think that also helped me to just I don't know, talking to people. And even though I didn't work on the art for the book during my classes, I think it helped to get me over having a lack of creativity. It's been a weird kind of progression with how it's been, but I have been able to work much, much easier on the book, and I've made good progress. So.
I found I wasn't fearful. I just became full-time creative. It was a kind of liberation. I started painting rather than representational work, non-representational, that is abstract, and it just took off.
The one I probably started with first was the one over at the top here that says today in Zoom, because all of a sudden everything became so serious, everything just went black. And I don't even think, like, I put the black bar behind it. I figured somebody would know what it meant, but everything just became Today in Zoom. And I have a bunch of them somewhere that just say, like, Today in Zoom, and it's got a single word balloon with whatever the catchphrase of the day was. It sort of progressed from one to the other. And then I started thinking about, like, the things that you don't want to think about. How is this going to affect my family? Is my mom in danger? Is my kid in danger? Am I in danger? Yeah, are we going to make it through this? How's this going to affect the economy? And one thing just sort of, I said, well, draw it. If it's bothering you, draw it. If you can't fix it, draw it. Maybe that'll help you sort it out.
It wasn't just loneliness, it was the severity of no life. There was no life in terms of students breathing life into their dormitories, where prior to the pandemic, students would be in the walkway, they'd be coming in and out doing their laundry. It was full of life. It's something so beautiful in terms of a reflection of a photograph. But the fact that there was no life there energizing it really affected me.
I think it's intuition. One really doesn't know. Maybe painting itself is a way of self-analysis. And it was liberating for me not to be painting something, a bowl of oranges, a crowd of people. But here in these paintings, there's really nothing you can focus on and say, oh, that's it.
When I work on a project, it often, I have a vision of how I want it to look when I go into it, and it never works. It never is the way I envision it, and it changed. This book in particular has changed and melded as I go along, and like I'm in the middle of 8 of the pieces of art right now for the book, at least, and I don't really want to glue anything down yet, and I think that's part of the uncertainty, and I just want to. And they're all in flat files, and some are on top of it. But they're just in because I feel like I might change my mind.
I've always been really organized. I always work with a plan when I'm teaching. Obviously, I make lesson plans, and with work too, I always have a schedule and a plan. So this sort of created focus for me where I could go back and look on it and say, this was the thought of the day, this is how I dealt with it, do I have to deal with it, can I put it aside? So it was a way to sort out feelings.
This has actually been inspiring to me in a lot of ways, and I know that's not what you would hear from most people, but because I'm a photographer, I'm a loner in a lot of regards. So for me, this just has been a time to think about what other ways can I put my art into use where it can benefit people.
I think all of us have inherited from this and developed a new sense of self-worth and self-understanding. That's really what art should do, is open a door for the viewer and surprise the viewer. It's just like sitting down to a meal from a chef whom you've never experienced. It's a taste. It's something new, and that's what art does at its best. I think is surprise one, and hopefully give them a joy as well. Now I don't know if the Covet series do that, but I'm a believer with Matisse that art should bring pleasure.